Monday, May 20th. How are we doing, Mandy?
Super fantastic. What made you laugh today, Amani?
What last today? I had a funny dream. That's what I'll say. I had a funny dream last night. It made me laugh.
Oh,
You never have those dreams where you kind of go back in time and you're like, I think I was in high school playing soccer. We were playing a game. It was coming right to the crescendo of the game. And then I
yeah.
woke up.
Oh, you don't know how it ended?
I don't know how it ended.
Oh my
But that
gosh,
made
did you
me laugh.
try and go back to sleep and
Couldn't do
like
it.
score the winning goal and become
Couldn't do
the next Messi? Did you do any of
it.
that?
Couldn't do it. But in my mind, I scored the one that carried me off the field. So we're gonna go with that for today.
Oh, carried you like a hero. You're the football hero.
Football. So that's the. How about you? What made you laugh this weekend?
A lot made me laugh this weekend. I had a great weekend. We went to the art fest, an art festival in San Diego, and it was lovely. And I was with my cousins. It was family time. Some good family time.
Good, awesome.
Mhm,
All right.
mhm.
Well, I think we want to maximize our time with our guest today because we have a
Let's do
bunch of
it.
questions. It's very interesting. Why don't you introduce our guest so we can get to asking the questions and learning more?
All right, here we go. We've got a legal wizard today, Amani. He has led legal teams at Meta and Coinbase. He's currently the COO of a super rad company that I really want to dig into called Spotdraft. He's a professor at Santa Clara University Law, a Cal Bear, a dad, and a hubby. So I think we should just bring to the stage Akshay Verma.
All right, here we go. Round of
What's
applause.
up? What's up? What's up?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's like the best intro that I've ever had. I feel
Really?
cool right now.
Yes.
You are cool. You want me to record it and send it to you? You can just play it when you're having a bad day.
Take Mandy on the road with you. Take
That
Mandy on
sounds
the
good to
road.
me. Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Akshay. It's good to see you. Now, where are you right now? You look like you have a very a studious situation and with color
We
coded books in the background.
those are some of my law books
Mhm.
and some fun books too.
Okay.
There's a bunch of hodgepodge of things there. I am sitting in beautiful sunny San Carlos, California, which is a small town just south of San Francisco. And beautiful Monday morning. Yeah.
All right. So, my first question is, how do you balance being like a CEO, running a company, but also like being a professor? How do you balance the two?
COO. Just
CEO, excuse me.
I don't
Yes.
want my CEO to be like,
Ah,
what is this guy
job
doing?
change.
This just in, new job.
COO. Yes, I see it right there on the
I
screen.
don't know that I do balance particularly well. I get through days, and it works out. I'm a part-time professor, and so that helps a lot. Certainly not full-time.
Right.
Full-time professor is two jobs rolled up into one.
Yeah.
So the part-time stuff helps. I'm a big believer that you have to satisfy different parts of yourself through different things that you do. And so for me, like teaching was going to be a part of my life in some way, but maybe not full time. And so that's kind of how that all came about a few years ago. I wanted to put together a class in law school that actually taught law students how to do things rather than just like read a bunch of books. So
Mhm.
that's how it all started. And then they decided a few years ago to put this class in the curriculum for first year law students on career pathing in the law. And the professor who put it together, she reached out to me. She's like, I really want you to teach this. So I've been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So is it one section or multiple sections?
I teach 2 sections, but it's
Okay.
once a week.
Nice.
And it's like 2 hours in the late afternoon, early evening, small class too, 13, 14 students. I
Nice.
try not to call them kids because it makes me feel old, even though they are. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. I mean, the legal profession is pretty dismal when it comes to things like mental health and substance abuse and lack of job satisfaction. And I'm a big believer that this class is set up very nicely to address that directly for the students who take it. It's not
Amazing.
like a wonder drug that's going to solve all those things, but it definitely helps quite a bit.
Okay, so both Manny and I are professors. I'm also part-time at Cal State University Fullerton, but I teach 4 classes a semester. But I understand it. What would you say would be maybe some of the most valuable lessons you've learned from your students in the past 3 or 4 years?
I love this question. You're a teacher.
Ooh.
Dude,
We're all
every single,
teachers.
and I don't even, this is not even an exaggeration. Every single class there's
Yeah.
something new.
Yeah.
Because it's not your typical law school class where here's the case, here's what we learned, the rule of law, blah blah blah, go apply it somewhere 3 years from now, whatever. This is like, what are your values? What do you care about? How do you understand that? How do you create self-awareness around it for yourself? And then how do you take that and you match it to the plan that you create for your career starting in law school? And you can't just tell somebody to do that. You have to do it through storytelling. And that's why the professors who teach this course are those that have a ton of work experience. They've been through some level of career zigzagging, I like to call it. Because otherwise, like, you've been somewhere for 25 years, I think it's going to be less effective, to be honest, because that's not the reality for these kids anymore. That's just not. I think from here on out, like, we're done with I worked at GE for a generation and now I retired on a pension. That's gone. That's not going to be a part of our reality.
Yeah.
So they have to understand how to navigate all that. So I learned a lot about what their insecurities are, and you see hints of that, like, with hindsight in yourself. But you also see, like, this real, like, back to humanity approach that they have to their careers. We talked about go get a job, make some money.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, I need some choice in my life. I'm not going to slave away for 90 hours a week just to make top dollar. That's not as important to me. And you really saw this in all of the data coming out of the pandemic as well. It's like, people are like, wait a minute. We were all at home. We were with our families. The world did not end. I know there was a lot of pain and suffering. I don't mean to, like, discount that, but the world did not end. Companies kept moving forward. Some of them made a shit ton of money. Like, can I swear on this thing?
You did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Amani get blushes when you swear, but I swear all the time, so it's fine.
All right, good.
It's fine.
I swear all
Yeah,
the time,
swear
too.
away, swear away. Yeah.
But we learned that about ourselves, and so, like, now these law students and employees are like, I want choice. God damn it! Like, I want choice, and I'm gonna use it, and I refuse to compromise on that. And so now there's, like, this real, I don't know if it's healthy, but there's a real tug of war between employees and employers. You will come back. I pay rent for this office. You will come back. And people are like, peace out. I'm out. I love that. I think it's fantastic. So I see a lot of that in these students. Before, in my first, like, year or two teaching the class, it was still very much like, I have to go to a law firm when I graduate. I have to make all this money and this and that. Now there's also 2 things that have happened. The mentality has shifted and their opportunities are 10x what they were even just 5-6 years ago. A lot of that has to do with legal operations and legal technology and just this proliferation in things that are happening in our profession, which is fantastic for everybody. But then I think the coolest part about it is that people are like, I'm not going to compromise my health, my family. Like, I can do both. And you really can.
Yeah.
Isn't that inspiring though? Because, like, when we were coming up, it was like, grind it out, work all the hours, be the first one in, be the last one in, say yes to everything. And I get inspired too by the people taking the class. I get inspired because I'm like, there are better ways. There's not better, there's different ways.
Right.
And I do take some cues from them too. So I'm glad you hear that because it is inspiring.
I had one more follow-up
Yeah.
because I'm so curious. As you have gotten more experience being a professor, when you think back to your first year or two, what did it take for you to kind of hit your stride as a professor? Because it's very difficult coming in. I'm assuming you never taught before. Coming into a college classroom, having to teach, like, it is a lot. How did you hit your stride?
I have like this is like I don't know, it's both a blessing and a curse for me from a personality perspective. I need my students to like me, right? And so because I think I'm more effective if I'm liked. I don't know that that's reality, but I had that was my mental makeup. I think it took me at least a year of teaching this to get over that.
Mm.
And that was one. The other part was, I have this, like, incessant need that everybody needs to fully grok what I'm saying, and that's also not real realistic. So I think once I got over those 2 humps, after the first time teaching, then it was like, I have this one student in my very f and he just small class. It's not like 80
Yeah.
students. This is
Yeah.
13 people in a room together. It's like a roundtable discussion, right, on a regular basis, and he just so confrontational. At one point, I will never forget it. He was like, "How are you qualified to teach this class?"
Oof.
And I almost wanted to get the fuck out of here. Like, just get out. Your
Yeah.
mind is closed to growth. Just get out. I almost wanted to say that, and I had to just, like, stare at him for a while. All the students were kinda like, "Oh my god, what's he gonna do? What
Gasping for
like,
air.
Mike, why did you say that?" Like, right? Like, it was just, like, this tension in the room. I was like, "Here's why." And then I went down my
Yeah.
resume and so I
Mhm.
was like, "Are you qualified to learn this class?"
Ooh.
Ooh,
What did he
what'd he
And
say?
say?
then he shut up after that.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from him since. I hear from many of my students since then. It's just that's one of the coolest part is because they'll apply for a job or they'll come across a connection 2 years after I've taught the class where they're applying for somewhere or they meet somebody I know and they'll reach out and be like, "Hey, like, can we talk about that?" That's to me, that's even more fun than the actual teaching. But I think, to your question, like once I got over those 2 humps,
Yeah.
it felt more natural. I stopped caring about every little side comment or question, and then it was like, I'll get to that, or don't worry so much, and just kind of keep pushing forward a little bit.
Love it. Over
Yeah.
to you, Mandy.
Awesome. Wait, I have a question for you, Amani. Do your students heckle you?
Woo. No, they don't really heckle me. We have some healthy debates. We have some conversations. Every once in a while, I have a student kind of like that who can be a little bit confrontational. But as the semester goes on, they see kind of I know what I'm talking about, and I've been there, so they kind of lighten up. But for the most part, no heckling. We just have healthy conversations, and they learn, and they're into it. So I'm fortunate. But it took me a while to get there. Like my first couple of classes, I was like, oh my gosh, you have a
Yeah.
little bit of imposter syndrome, but you
Yeah.
get over that and you keep
Hmm.
going.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to hang in this. I have a two-part question. So I want to
Yeah.
hang in this student forum for a second. So I read somewhere that you ask students what fires them up, or they need to determine what fires them up. So what fires you up? And it could be personal, it could be professional, but what's the first thing that comes to mind? This is a two-part question.
My kids. Um,
Aw.
I teach and coach a lot with them. Their sports, other things. They're old enough now where we get to talk about like they're 9 and 11, but they're just super thoughtful. Like they like to talk and ask questions. And Tina and I we encourage that a lot. I don't see that with a lot of kids. And so that fires me up when they ask me like this crazy question about life. Oh man, I can't remember what the question was now. Damn it. I had a great conversation with my older son in the car the other day, and it was just like this question it was a question about he was looking at his shoes. I was taking him to basketball practice.
Mhm.
He's looking at his shoes and he has a pair of Under Armours, which as you know are made in China. And he asked this question. He's like, "Dad, why is everything made in China?" We had about a 15-minute drive to practice.
Mm.
So he got a 12-minute crash course in building a business and profits and environmental degradation and oppression and all these things. And I was like, dropping him off. I was like, was that too much? He was like, no, but business is hard. I was like, hell yeah, dude, it's hard.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's a
And
good
no, and like
lesson.
those
Yeah.
kinds, like obviously that conversation which for him will probably like he'll have some reminder of it down the road. For me, like left a mark. Like it left a mark. I was like, that was the first time he and I have talked about business. And like, his dad's at a startup now, and like this is my reality on a daily basis. And we just connected over something like that. And he asked, he's like, well, is everything made in China? I was like, not everything. I was like, we try not to buy a lot of things from China, but
Mhm.
dude, the entire economy of the globe is like teetering on the fact that like China can produce things at this price. If that ever changes,
Yeah.
boom, like
Yeah.
it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I think it's great that you're open to having those conversations because some parents would you're scrambled eggs at the end of the day, or you just don't want
Yeah.
to talk about it. Or you're like, because I said so. That's what my dad said, at least. So I think it's great. You're open and engaging with that. Okay. Second part of the
Yeah.
question. And then I do want to move on to spot draft.
Sure.
So Amani, I'm going to bogart this for a couple minutes. Sorry. And thank
Take
you.
it away.
Okay. Okay.
Wait.
The second,
What does
yeah.
that mean? Bogart.
Like, well, because he and I try and go back and forth, but I'm taking on like three more. I'm probably going to ask
Okay.
three more questions
But
before
why
I let it.
Bogart? Is it like Humphrey? Is it like that, or is it just something else?
No,
It's
I
like
don't know.
it's like
Yeah.
an old kind of hip hop term where you would like kind of bust through the room and take over for like an extended period of time without permission.
Got it.
Yes, that's
Is that what Humphrey did on a daily basis in his movies, or is it something else?
I'll look up the genesis of the term in the Urban Dictionary. Let me look it up real quick and I'll let you know.
Amani is the music professor. So if
Got it.
anybody knows these answers,
Nice.
it's going to be him. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But so, like,
Fact check.
that's the question my kids would ask. Like, what does that mean? And they're like, they really want to. I love that, man. Like,
Yeah.
you got to have a curious mind.
Mhm.
I love curiosity is a superpower if you let it. I love it. Okay, second question. This is selfish. This is for my niece Cassie. She's finishing. I'm asking for her. She didn't ask me to ask. She'd be mortified if she heard this. She's finishing her second year of college. She is going to law school eventually. She just got accepted to the Oxford Law program for the summer.
Wow!
So,
Congratulations.
yeah, it's really awesome, right? So as she goes into her junior and senior year as undergrad,
Yeah.
having not only as a professor, but having this storied background that you do have, which we'll talk about in a second, what advice do you have for her? Like, what could she do her last couple years of undergrad to make the most of her potential law school opportunities?
Rest.
Oh, that's
Sleep.
nice.
Yeah, look, law school is one of those. I got this advice when I was a paralegal before I went to law school, and I got this advice from an awesome lawyer that I worked with at my law firm. When I had gotten accepted, and I was like firm that I was going, and he said, "Look, law school. This is 2003. He said law school rewards an extreme amount of hard work. That is the game.
Mm,
That is the law school
mm,
game." And I had been working at this firm for 3 years, like was no stranger to hard work, so I took that. But um, I got there, and there was a bunch of peers who barely studied, but they studied the right way, and they crushed it. So I'd say for your niece Cassie, couple things: A, be open to how you learn, understand how you learn, and then leverage that from an efficiency perspective for
mhm,
yourself, because you can get just buried in like, oh my gosh, I've got this won't sound like a big number, but it's a long time. I've got 80 pages of reading, and like one page of a old like legal text case can take you 20 minutes. It really can, because you got to dissect it.
mhm,
So be open to how you learn and like create that efficiency, and then be open to exploring things that are completely counterintuitive to what law school is telling you. And to me, that's really where the magic is
mhm,
for post law school. It's starting to change, but like if we think, and I think this way, if I think a profession and the people who practice in it and play in it and work in it are slow to change, academia,
Mm.
that is like glacial pace change.
mhm. Yeah.
So, which is why I'm so proud of Santa Clara Law, where I went to law school. They're obviously they're at the cutting edge here in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Most of their law grads end up either at law firms servicing technology clients, or go in-house like I did to go to these big tech companies. They're on the cutting edge of technology. I won't say on the cutting edge of humanity, but definitely on the cutting edge of technology. So they have been more forward thinking, and how should we be teaching our students, and what should they be learning, because they've been doing it the same way for a couple of 100 years, and we're churning out robots who are not happy with doing the same shit over and over again.
Mhm.
So now there's options on the other side for people to think about, and I be open to that, man. Like be open to getting a law degree and not practicing law. I think
Mm.
Mm.
you can get your mind around that and just be like totally cool with it, it'll start turning into just another really good graduate degree that you do not have to practice law with.
That's excellent advice. I'm going to snip this part and send it to Cassie. I love
Cut
that. Thank you for that.
part.
Okay,
Cut this part.
now I want
Not
to switch
snip.
gears.
Cut this part.
Oh,
Not
I
snip.
Amani. Amani and I have a conflict about the word snip. I'm going to cut this part. I say the word snip too much in our prep meetings. He's like, you have to stop saying that. You have to stop.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair
I'm
enough.
going to cut this part and share it with Cassie. Okay. Now I want to switch gears because you have such a varied background, right? You were at Latham and Watkins, you were at law firms, then you went into legal operations, you're at Axiom, Meta, Coinbase. Then one day you switch gears again and you go to Spotdraft as the COO. So really quick, can you talk to us about what that jump looked like and what is Spotdraft?
Well, let me start with the company first. So every company on the planet, business on the planet,
Yeah.
cannot run without contracts. If you do, you're probably headed for disaster at that point. But you get to a state, you have to run on contracts. You buy things, you sell things, all of that, right? Employment contracts, all that. That's the reality, all the way up to the largest corporations on the planet. The other reality is that the vast majority of those companies, organizations, whatever, do not manage their contracts well enough or at all, to be honest. So that's the solution that we provide. So we call ourselves an end-to-end CLM. That's a contract lifecycle management system. Okay. It's a piece of software. It's a platform that helps you from everything from like the business is like, hey, we need a contract for this thing. We're making a sale. We're buying toilet paper for our offices, whatever it is, all the way through. Okay. It's been drafted. It's been negotiated. It's been redlined. It's been executed, signed. And then it goes into the Spotdraft repository where it's managed. And by managed, I mean there's a bunch of gold, especially over time, that appreciates in value inside the four corners of that paper. All these business insights that you have, right? Like pricing terms and legal terms that you have negotiated and agreed to over a 5-year span with the other side, that can be really valuable information, right? For future negotiations. None of that is managed well at corporations. So our software helps you do that. And it gives you all those insights. So yeah. Good.
So who are your primary is it an in-house counsel that uses this? Is this a COO? Like who are your primary?
Yeah.
Who does this benefit the
is my
most?
favorite part about this technology. Most legal technology, and there's been a boom in legal technology in the last 10 years, 8 years. Most legal technology in terms of users is confined mainly to the legal department and some of its ancillary functions like operations or whatever it might be. And then maybe one other group. Okay. E-billing, which is electronic billing, is one example of that. Very powerful tool, necessary tool, but it's generally used by outside counsel to submit their bills, in-house counsel to review those bills, or a lot of it's done with AI now, and then maybe finance has access to that. But contracting is what we call an enterprise ecosystem. I'm sorry if I sound like a consultant, but I did some of that work.
No, that's not. You're fine. You're fine. We're eating it all up.
Yeah,
It's
like everybody touches contracts, sales,
Mhm.
procurement, right? Everybody touches HR. They all touch contracts. So the entire company needs to use this thing. But where's the holdup in contracting? It's almost always legal, right? It's like, hey, lawyer, like I sent you this 2 weeks ago. Why haven't we signed this deal yet? Oh, I've been negotiating. Why are you negotiating this clause? Like we don't accept the risk. Just accept it. We're good with this. Don't negotiate it because you feel the need to. All of those things happen, right? So for the most part, this creates our tool creates an efficiency, and efficiencies are best solved at the most inefficient point in the chronology of the thing that you're solving, right? So that happens to be legal. So that's our main stakeholder. It's our main ICP. That's who we sell to primarily now. They're also the heaviest users of our product, but everybody needs visibility. So that salesperson who's waiting for her deal, who asks the lawyer, instead of asking, the platform gives you visibility. It's actually sitting with this person at this stage. Oh, and by the way, I can actually see in the platform, it's out to the other side for comment right now, right?
Mm.
But the longest lag, this is like a cool data piece that like you just see in this world. Like the biggest lag or the biggest delay is actually at the signature stage.
Mm.
Doesn't matter which side. It's like sitting there in your inbox. Why
Yeah.
can't you just have to do like 2 clicks to sign? Why can't you do that? So really cool stuff and data that you gather through this that like teaches you about, human choices and like human behavior. Like I love that side of this entire thing, even though it's technology, but a lot of this is around human behavior.
A lot of it, and it's also around time management of human behavior, right?
Yeah.
So here's a question. So I negotiate contracts all day, every day. I work with many general counsel of company, and they're my favorite people, right? Because we speak the same language. And my goal is always to get that document to them in a way like my snapshot of success is like they only have 2 or 3 changes. Like if I'm doing my job the right way, it's as clean as possible and they only
100%.
have a couple changes, right? I also know most general counsel with their legal team, a hotel contract is the last thing they want to look at. It's the lowest priority. It's the least interesting.
Yeah.
So that creates more value for what I do, right? I love that. But if I'm having a conversation with some general counsel partners about this particular product, like what do I say to them? Because I think I had mentioned this when you first started or when you first joined the company. I'm like, oh my gosh, this could be a life changer
Yeah.
for so many of my clients. What could I say to them or what dare I say to them that this might help them? Like, how does this help improve
Yeah.
their world? What
Yeah.
are some talking points?
I think the easiest way to explain it is it saves you time, money, and energy,
Mhm.
just like my elevator pitch on the contracting side.
Mhm.
The other is it actually accelerates your business. It has
Mm.
this solution has the capacity to accelerate your business. Who's not going to get behind that? Right? It's a
Mhm.
very simple value proposition. You sell things. When you sell things, you make money. The more things you sell, the more money you make. You sell things by signing contracts. The more contracts you sign, the more money you make. It's really
Mhm.
that simple.
Mhm.
Now, getting the acceleration takes some time and energy to figure that out, but
Mhm.
this tool is the last piece of that process. We talk a lot in my world about people, process, and technology. And the first two, what they do, how they do it, is really, really important. In fact, it's more important than the tool itself
Mhm.
because the tool, like if you don't know, I'll take a different analogy. If you work, you're a woodworker. If you don't know how to use the tool well, you're not going to make a good product,
Mhm.
right? And you're going to hurt yourself.
Right.
It's the same thing with legal technology. If you don't have the right people in place doing the right things the right way first, like get that process and the people aligned properly, then what you do when you introduce a tool into that is that you just amplify all the pain that they're already feeling. So let's get that, and we help with that as well. We have a services component that does that. There are lots of consultants out there that do that. Let's get that in place first. Let's make sure that you are what we call CLM ready. Like you're ready to implement a tool that will help you accelerate the process. So once you do that, then you can start measuring the data. Okay, I reduced my deal cycle time on my SaaS contracts by 17% this month. How did that translate into additional revenue? And then over time,
Mhm.
that deal cycle goes down and down and down. And all of a sudden, like instead of closing 100 contracts a month, you're closing 200 contracts a month, right? Those are
There's
the
the
things.
accelerator.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care what part of the business you work in, you're gonna love that. So that's
Mhm.
just one aspect of how this tool is really, really beneficial, including to GCs who have the CRO or the VP of business. Be like, where's my contracts? Like, can we please get these signed and get going?
Mm. Okay,
Okay.
awesome. That helps. Thank you.
Okay. So I have some follow up for us. First of all, let me tell you 2 definitions of bogarting. Okay. Bogarting
Amani, bringing the heat.
okay. So it says it's a slang term derived from the last name of famous actor Humphrey Bogart because he often kept a cigarette in the corner of his mouth, seemingly never actually drawing on it or smoking it.
Yeah.
Now, the slang term is to selfishly take or keep something, to hog, which like many just
Yeah, there you
hogged the
go.
last 15
I was
minutes.
question hogging. I'm
Yes,
hogging, yes.
especially to hold a joint dangling between the lips instead of passing it on. So instead of puff and passing,
no puff puff give.
Yeah, done. So metaphorically, that's what Mandi was just doing. So
Got it.
without the joint. Okay,
Yeah.
now to bring it back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amani.
Thank you.
That you made us smarter. Yeah, you made us
Like,
smarter.
it makes so much sense. It's so cool. Like, thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Of course. So if your 9 or your 11-year-old ever asks, you could probably explain that a little bit differently. Your time at Facebook and Meta, I'm a big sucker for like lessons. When you think back to your time there, what were some of the most valuable lessons you learned?
So I joined Facebook in 2018. I still have a hard time calling it Meta, so I'm just gonna stick with Facebook.
Just stick with Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, OG. Call it the OG stuff. And let people know what you did at Facebook
Yeah.
Meta.
So
too.
I was the head of legal operations at Facebook. When I started, our legal department, so the company was about 36,000 employees when I started. The legal department was 800. By the time I left, almost 4 years later, the legal department had grown to almost 2,000.
Wow.
Wow.
2,000 people in legal.
Wow.
And the company at its peak was somewhere, I don't know, 60, 65K. Massive, massive company.
Yeah.
So one of my biggest learning, like, how do you navigate that world? It is a skill set all on its own to understand how to navigate that scale. I am naturally extroverted. I go out of my way to like meet with people and talk to people and all that. So that helped a lot. But still understanding like how some of those pieces fit together was a big learning lesson. The other one was around leadership. And my manager there, a guy by the name of Alan Lowe, who's just an amazing human, an awesome lawyer, and was a fantastic leader. He had a very large team within the legal department. Hundreds of people reported up into him, into his org. And his leadership team did a quarterly virtual retreat. Eventually, it became in person once we were out of the virus, where we would get together and navigate some kind of really like important leadership concepts so that we could employ them in our work with our teams. And I learned a lot through that process about what it means to be a leader. What does it actually look like? In fact, I'm bringing a lot of those learning lessons to Spotdraft. HR rolls up into me, our people team. And so that's a huge point of emphasis for me, not just in my daily interaction with my direct reports and the greater company, but also like helping our CXOs who are first time CXOs. I'm also a first time CXO, making sure that we're setting the tone and leading by example. Like I'd say those two things were critical, not only to help me get to Coinbase and then continue to practice that at Coinbase, but it was a huge part of what I insisted on having as a part of my world at Spotdraft.
Okay. Now, I'm always also curious about, executives who work in a social media company. What is your opinion on social media? Do you like it? Do you use it? Kind of what's your perspective on that?
Where's the spicy emoji on this question?
Yeah, Amani, throw up a spicy chat emoji.
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do.
Where's your peppers?
Yeah, this one. I've had let me just say that I've had a very interesting evolution in my thought process on this. So in law school, I by the time I got to law school, I had no social media. So it was 2003. There wasn't really around. Friendster was there. If you guys remember Friendster,
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake owns it now, or now it's MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
So there was MySpace. There was Friendster that was kind of up and coming. Those were the only two that I had heard about. And I met my now wife my first year in law school, and she was on Friendster, and I was like, what are you doing? This is so stupid. Or you got chatbot open, like you're texting like on your computer. Just pick up the phone and call somebody. What the fuck, right? Like that was my mentality. Well, as karma would have it, after law school, Tina started at Facebook. So, very small company at that point, 300 people. It was in Palo Alto. I was practicing up in San Francisco. She was living in LA, and like we were almost like about to be done. And like I was like one of my few ultimatums, if maybe the only one that I've kind of given my wife ever, was like, hey, if you don't move up here from LA, like, I don't see how we keep this alive. So she moved up. She took the job at Facebook. I didn't know anything about Facebook at the time, and so obviously she got a Facebook account. She was like, "When are you getting?" And I was like, "I'm not getting a Facebook account." No, I was like, "I call my friends, I text my friends, I talk to my friends. I don't need this shit." So that was my mentality up until like 2007, and then I had a slow day at the office. I was a
Uh,
second year associate. And I was like, "What the hell? My girlfriend's there. I should sign up." And boy, did I not look back for the next few years. And
yeah.
she totally clowns me now. She's like, "You are like Mr. Facebook in our entire orbit of friends and family." Like, and I was, again, like I value connection. That is
Mhm.
such a core of who I am. And I got back in touch with high school friends and
Mm.
college friends and family. A lot of my family is scattered throughout the globe. We created a Facebook family page. Like, I was constantly engaging with things. This is 2007 for the next few years. And then Instagram came, and like, I loved it. And so it's just a big fan of all of this. And then obviously all the shit went down with the election and misinformation, but I was a true believer in the positive power that it brought to the table.
Mhm.
So that lasted up until a few years ago. And now that you see all the research about kids and mental health and all of those kinds of things, I'm a firm believer that it is harmful. It is harmful to the brain until a certain point. By the way, I feel the same way about cannabis now, right?
Mhm.
Plenty of research out there in the developing brain. I'm a big Huberman podcast fan. I don't know if you guys know Andrew Huberman. He does the Huberman Lab. He's a neurologist at Stanford. He's amazing. He goes deep, 2-3 hour episodes, heavy research on lifestyle, everything from sleep to diet, exercise, decision making, confidence, all of those kinds of things. He did a few episodes on cannabis with, like, he's very data driven, and I'm very
Mm.
data driven.
Yeah.
And the latest finding is that in developing men, especially adolescents, it can cause permanent psychosis in a large enough percentage
Wow.
for it to be scary, right? So, and again, like, I think about this through the lens of my kids now. Like, my older one's about to be 12, my younger one's gonna be. This is gonna be their reality pretty soon. That choice is gonna be in front of them. How do I help them navigate it? So my approach is with data. I was like, you are smart enough to understand it if I show you the data itself and explain it to you like a 12-year-old, obviously. So, those kinds of things, I think, for me, are very similar with social media. I think it is incredibly powerful, can be incredibly powerful, but I see this with my parents' generation. Do you know they're the largest segment of the population to get duped by fake news?
Yes.
Their brains
Yes.
don't know the importance of filtering it because they weren't taught that. It totally makes sense. They grew up in an
Yeah.
analog age. I grew up in an analog age. But because I've been part of this world for so long, I understand that when I see something right there in front of me that feels like, oh, this is cool, I have to double, triple, quadruple check it before I even think about it. I'll just give you an example. Instagram sends all of us ads. Their targeting is so good. I buy a lot of things through that,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of fake shit on there too. So you click on it, it is this beautiful website. Thankfully, there are verifying websites that you can go to now and check, is this real? What do you mean I can get a pair of Jordans for $75? Right?
Mhm.
So those kinds of things you have to build into your process for how you validate things. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is just straight mental health, and how teens especially are at risk for not just addiction, but obviously cyberbullying and those kinds of things. So the issues are not new. Bullying's been around.
Yeah.
And humans have been around.
Mhm.
Fake news has been around as long as humans have been around. Gossip's been around as long as humans been around. But the scale of it now, the speed of it now, the proliferation of it now is somewhat frightening. So that's my
Yeah.
view on social media at this stage in my life.
Well, and I appreciate that. And I what I appreciate about the data is, yes, for kids of a certain age, it is until the brain is fully formed. let's make sure we know, what they're on, what they're not on.
Yeah.
Now, as adults of our age, like we're all around the same age, you are really active on LinkedIn, and I love your posts. They're really
Thank
educational.
you.
So, what is that right transition? Like, what is that right use of, and if we're calling LinkedIn social media, like, what
It
is
is.
that right use of social media for
Yeah.
you for business?
Yeah. For me, I think about 10 years ago, I think I set it up in law school, but I didn't really leverage it. I started leveraging it later on in my career, primarily as a business development tool early on
Mhm.
at Axiom. I was in business development and consulting at Axiom for 7 years almost. So then it was an opportunity to connect with people who are already my clients and then future clients. And then it just starts snowballing after a while. Again, like part of this is just who I am. Like I love talking to people. I love getting to know them. My approach isn't like, oh, this person's going to be a customer. It's not that. It's like, who are you? What do you care about? And then if there's an opportunity for us to work together, great. If not, great. Like, well, there are other things that are important between two human beings. So that was the primary driver. And then I started teaching in 2017, and then it became an opportunity to kind of, I was like at a stage in my career where there was things that I think were valuable for other people to hear that I had done or understood or thought about in a certain
Mhm.
way. So then my content started transitioning into that. And then it just kind of picked up steam. I enjoyed doing it. Um, when I joined Spotdraft, so the vast majority of the company is in Bangalore in India.
Mhm.
So how do you onboard an executive who is 12, 13 hours away?
Mhm.
And I had to put some thought into that. And especially in the first 2 months, so critical, right? Obviously, they make a big announcement. It's all over social media. They see it, but like, who is this guy? What does he care about? What's he going to change? What's he going to
Mhm.
do? And so I decided we use Slack internally. So I decided to do a weekly video post in the general Slack channel for the entire company, which are like components of things that I posted on LinkedIn, things that I care about that don't have to do anything with the company. So things like that I learned in leadership or things that I learned about human beings as a way of like, this is who I am. Before I like, here's what we need to do in HR. Here's what we need to do in delivery. Before we get to that, like, this is who I am. So that when I do those things and when I think about those and when I say this is important, they at least have some sense of the human being that is behind that.
Mhm.
I think that makes a big difference, especially when
Yeah.
like I'm not in the office, right, with the rest of them for the vast majority of it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah,
And they get to know you, and then when you actually meet them in person, you feel like your starting line is moved.
a
You
little
feel
bit.
like you know each other a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely,
That's great.
absolutely. Yeah.
So we've come to the time of the show where we flip the script and we let you ask both Mandy and myself a question. Any question, nothing is off limits. So, who do you want to ask a question to first, and what is said question?
And it's for either one of you, or maybe both of you. Why do you do this? Why do you put so much time and energy into this podcast?
All right,
What is it for you?
Mandy, you first.
Oh, Amani. Well, so a couple things. When I was on my book tour in 2022, so many people came up to me to tell me their grueling business stories or their triumphant business stories. And as a writer, I felt like I have to write, I have to now have to write another book about these stories. But then I kept thinking I just felt it was selfish to keep those in and not share those. So I wanted to share other people's trips and triumphs. I felt like a master class once a week, once a month, whatever it was, sharing that with other people, it can
Yeah.
help. It can grow my community. And for myself, I've learned so much. I've written down 7 things since we started 50 minutes ago, just and this time we've been together. So I look at why I do this is I love to learn. I love to interact with people, but I also think there's power in sharing your network
Yeah.
and sharing things out there. And so the networking is huge. And I will say this, like as in both sides of both of my businesses, this has grown my business because people feel like, oh, we can interact with Mandy for a week, or we can listen to her while we're walking our dog or waiting for our kids at pickup or drop off. And we feel like we know her. We feel like we might trust her a little bit. So let's hire her to book our next conference, or let's hire her to speak on sales at our next sales meeting. So
For sure.
there's some accidental consequences have come from it. But my original primary was for networking and for sharing those stories. Now, Amani and I will be at this for 2 years in July, and we understand the value. We just did a whole presentation with a bunch of data about the podcast business in general. So we're in that next phase of monetizing it and working with sponsors and using integrated marketing to capture more sponsor dollars and
Nice.
monetize it. So that's our next step, right? So I see that very clearly where I didn't see that in the beginning. So first it would be personal education, sharing education, and second would obviously just create another revenue stream for the businesses.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to add to what Mandi said, I would never be able to meet you without this podcast.
Yeah.
It's
One
true.
of networking, intimate networking is so valuable, and it just expands your network. But we're attending a master class for this last hour on your career, your business, your thought process, and that would be impossible if we were just to meet at a conference and talk at lunch. And that's kind of why I love to do it. Mandi educates me on sales. I learn a lot. We learn a lot from each other, if we're being honest, like live
We do.
streaming sales. And it's like you're just going to class every week.
That's awesome. Look,
Yeah.
you each touched on one aspect of a post I did last week on LinkedIn about brand and networking, right? Like two of the most important aspects of an individual, certainly a company and all of that. And this helps build your brand from a pure business perspective. This is 100% true. People buy from people they trust and like.
Yes.
That's a reality. So if you can build that as a part of your brand, that's a fantastic place to be. And also, for both of you, there are ancillary, I won't call them consequences, effects and impacts, because it's positive from my perspective. But it starts from a place of authenticity. There's a desire from a non-transactional perspective to put this out there. And I also believe, like, when you do things from a place of authenticity, you will be successful in one way or another.
I agree.
You can tweak the process a little bit, deciding, depending on which decision or direction you want to head in, whether it's business or just kind of information dissemination or whatever it is. But if it comes from a place of authenticity, you will be successful.
I think it's important that you say that, because I know that is a guiding principle for us about this show, is that we're never going to start this to make money, right? We're going to start this for the reasons that matter to us. And if we make some money along the way, awesome. I know that we can. That's awesome. But the goal really is that, like, to meet people, to share stories, to put the best out in the world, because all of that, we need more of the best out in the world. We're flooded with some of the not so best out in the world. So I
Thank you,
appreciate
social
you
media.
saying that.
Yeah. Now we're gonna get our prints on, and we're gonna take it back to 1999. We're not gonna party.
Oh, snap.
We're gonna take it back to 1999 when you were just graduating from Cal Berkeley, the Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears. And give yourself advice back then based on what you know and have learned now. What advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah. Somebody asked me the same question in a different context, but at a different time frame. This is gonna sound really lame.
No such thing. No such thing.
Not a ton, to be honest. And like, I got really lucky, or this is just how I'm built. I never got hung up on too much in my life. I just never did. I definitely had stressful moments and this and that, but I always just kept moving forward. Like, whatever was there, like, I'd figure it out and move forward. I'm not a person who has a lot of regrets. Um, I'm not one that I felt like I sped through aspects of my life. So it's not like the things that I could think of that that a person would give advice to their younger self, like, slow down, be real, things will work out. Like, I kind of felt like that was already my mentality. So I think the one thing that I think I would say, which is a very personal thing, is work on yourself earlier. Like,
Mm.
I've done a lot of
Goals.
work in the last, like, especially the last 7 or 8 years, thanks to my wife, thanks to my kids, but maybe that's just the natural evolution of me. But if I could have started some of that, like, heavier work earlier, it would have been fun. But, like, I also, like, things unfold as they're supposed to, and they did, and I feel like I'm in a really, really good place now, so I don't know that that would be very valuable advice, because maybe I needed to do some of the shit I did in my early 20s and mid-20s and late 20s to be where I am now, so I don't wanna screw that up. This is why I don't think time travel is a good idea at all. Like, fuck it all up.
Forget the time place capacitator. You might not have been ready.
Yeah,
Prior to 7
yeah,
years ago,
absolutely,
you might not have recognized the value
absolutely.
in it, like, right? So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
That's
Mandy,
awesome.
over to you.
Okay, I have 2 non-related questions. I'm bogarting again, Amani. Okay. First one is the evolution from a general counsel to a COO. So, our audience, we have some entrepreneurs in our audience, we have some entrepreneurs, we have some executives, we have some emerging leaders. So, for anybody out there that's considering, oh, I think I'm on the legal path, or I think I'm on this path, and now I'm evolving into this. Like,
Yeah.
what evolution have you been experiencing, and what advice do you have for people considering that type of evolution?
I am actually leading a roundtable discussion on Thursday at a conference here in San Francisco called Full Stack,
Nice.
where this is the topic. And I'm
Excellent.
co-facilitating that roundtable with a woman who is both GC and COO at her company, and
Hmm.
she was a law firm lawyer, then she was a general counsel, and she has more recently stepped into the dual GC COO role. So we're digging into these issues. Um, I think this is another example of, like, the opportunity that's available to people after law school. Historically, the legal department has not been connected to the business the way that it needs to be, right?
Yeah.
Lawyers are taught to evaluate risk first and foremost. If you run a business like that, it's not going to be a business for very, very long, right? Lawyers over index on risk. So
Mhm.
I think that's one of the biggest mental shifts that have to happen. And I don't mean by the time you get to the GC is the top lawyer at a company. So, but you cannot become that person until you make this flip. And it's either
Mhm.
inherent or you're coached through it. Both are possible. I over indexed on, like, my risk profile is like through the roof. I have a very high tolerance for risk, which is why I wasn't a particularly good law firm lawyer. So I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is lawyers tend to work in silos. They tend to work within the legal department with a little bit of, like, I need to service my client in the way that I'm taught to service. Like, it's a service industry. That remains true in corporations. But the reality of it is that a corporation is this intricate web of relationships that help it move forward. And I think you have to get outside of that, like, linear, siloed conversation with your client and really start understanding how all of the pieces fit together. In my current role as COO, the teams that report up into me are HR, delivery, implementation, community, and then I have a chief of staff. Oh, and legal as well. Like, those all roll up into me. And one of the things we do in our weekly stand-ups is, and this is not something that's been a discipline at Spot Draft, is we just do a quick 2 to 3 minute update by each leader of that team, just to give
Mhm.
everybody a little bit of visibility.
Yeah.
Because you cannot run a company in silos. That does not work well. Like, it just certainly does not scale well. So I think those two concepts are critical for somebody who's thinking about making a transition from the GC to any kind of CXO. And I've seen lawyers who are CEOs, CFOs, COOs. I'm sure there are other O's that are out there, or C's that are out there, but those
Mhm.
three mainly are ones that I think are not only possible, but I think are a really natural transition, assuming that you're the right kind of person and you approach it the right way.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Our guest host next week, who's been a previous guest, he's a chief HR officer who he went to law school.
Yep.
He was never a practicing attorney, but he knew to be an effective chief HR officer, someday he would have to
Yeah.
understand the law. So that's a perfect example of that
Great.
visibility, just cross training
Absolutely.
that and understanding that. That's great.
Absolutely. And my wife is the same way. She never practiced law. She's been in privacy and data security, and at her new startup, she's the VP of people. So very, there's so much you can do. Like I don't believe in like pedigree. I don't believe in silos. I don't believe that you're only like gonna do one thing. Like that's part of the fun of a career is how different can I get and how much fun is it gonna be?
Yeah.
Totally agree.
All right. Did you have a second one or?
I'm gonna hold it for another time.
Okay.
I'm happy to go over it. It's been so fun.
Are you? Do you have a couple more minutes? Do you?
Let me just
okay.
let me ping my 11. It's a one-on-one, not a big deal. And,
Amani, do you have a couple more
so
minutes?
I have my one-on-one next is with a guy by the name of Tyler Finn. He runs the Spotdraft podcast.
Oh, awesome.
It's called The Abstract. It's all over LinkedIn as well. He's really good.
Nice.
We'll have to watch that. I haven't. It's called. Say it again. The Abstract.
The Abstract. Yeah.
Okay. We'll have to.
Yeah,
watch
it's
that
on our
as well.
website. So if you go to spotdraft.com, you can check out previous episodes. Mine was episode 2, I think.
Okay.
I recorded it with him at our at the Legal Operations annual conference, which is in Vegas every year. In fact, it's next week. I recorded it with him there. That was when I first started having conversations with the CEO about joining them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. How can we best support you, and what can we do to kind of spread the word about Spotdraft and yourself and everything?
Yeah. I certainly tell people about us, and they'll get a good glimpse of that if they listen to the podcast. But we're in hyper growth mode, which is a really cool place for me to be. I love that phase of a company. We're a Series A startup. We'll probably be Series B soon. We'll see how the funding rounds go. But I found out about myself that I wasn't a lawyer because I wanted to be a lawyer. I was a lawyer because I really like improving things, and like whether that's lives or situations or problems or what it is. And that's what our company does. I have so much feedback from our customers about how easy their lives have become in this aspect of their work because of our product. I love that story. Like storytelling is so important, and our profession is really shitty at it. So I hope we get better, but I love those stories. And I think for your audience, whoever's out there, I guarantee you're feeling some level of pain in your contracting. Like we can definitely help.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we got the ticker going. We'll spread the word. I just want to say, it's been a pleasure talking. It's been a fun conversation.
Thank you.
You're coming to Vegas. I'm in Vegas, so let me know. Maybe.
Are you really?
Yes. But
I'll be there all next week.
Okay, so let me know. We can meet up for some coffee or something. Say hello. But just awesome job. It's so great to meet you. This is what I'm talking about. Like I would have never met you without this, and now my life is so much better because we talked. So amazing.
Yeah. Well, look, I also got some tips on your approach that I'll share with Tyler for his podcast.
Okay.
It's been really fun. Easy conversation. The hour flew by.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, and let us know how we can support you, and we will be in touch. And good luck with your conversation. You said May 2nd. You've got your evolution.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with all of that too.
Cool.
We'll put you back in the green room. Round of applause here. So give a round of applause there. Yes. Okay, maybe another amazing show. What do we have to look forward to next week?
We get a week off, Amani.
Yes, I can see
Memorial Day. Yeah. We get a week off. So, and then after that, then we come back on June 3rd with Justin Ulrich, who's the CMO for a really cool company called Evocalize. So, but don't worry, there will be plenty of content between May 20th and June 3rd.
Yes.
Lots of really cool reels to look at, lots of fun quotes, but we'll be back live on June 3rd.
All right. Make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review the podcast and show if you're just joining it. Share it with a friend. And with that, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye. Thank you.